Coleman dipper, chicken liver, catfish lip.
Good afternoon. We're glad that you have chosen to share with us. Those of you who are watching online, we welcome you, and the family is here in the room, and I'm grateful for each of you, the pallbearers who are here. Thank you all. We want to be able to remember Carol's life, obviously. We want her story cry and do all those kinds of things. And we have some songs that are included in the service today that the family, the grandchildren heard a lot. And so we're going to begin the service today with singing You Are My Sunshine, because she just went around singing You Are My Sunshine. So if you would, we're going to sing it through twice as we begin. The organ's going to play it through once so we can hear it, and then if you would, join with me. Here in the front of the church, you'll see what we call the sunbeam window. And sometimes people ask, well, are the beams coming down from God or are the beams going up to God? And my answer would be, well, both. And Carol was that sunshine that shined up and everybody got to enjoy, but she also wanted you to know that you also were her sunshine, and she loved you all greatly. I want to ask you to join with me in remembering our faith by saying Psalm 23 together, if you would read along. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Will you pray with me? God, we gather in this place today as family, expressing our love, respect for the life of Carol Coleman. We each carry in our hearts special stories, special sayings that we've all collected around this wonderful woman. I pray that as we've gathered here today, that you will help us to lift up her story once again, that you would cause us to have a peace that surpasses even our understanding, and that, God, you would guard our hearts and minds in Christ Jesus our Lord, who taught us to pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. I want to share with you some words that I hope you will find helpful. Christians of old have always traveled to a place of worship, and when they went to Jerusalem, no matter from which direction you came, it was uphill. And they felt at that time that God was there in the temple. And so they would sing, I lift up my eyes into the hills. From where does my help come? My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. He will not let his foot be moved. He who keeps us will not slumber. He who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. For the Lord is our keeper. The Lord is the shade at our right hand. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all evil. He will keep your life. The Lord will keep your going out and your coming in from this time on and forevermore. And as you'll hear later in the service, there's always been those phrases that the church has pulled together and centered their lives around. And there are a lot of carolisms that you have in the family as well. But the Proverbs say things like this: trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not rely on your own understandings. But in all your ways, acknowledge God, and God will make straight your path. Another passage that I pulled is related to the people of Israel. People of Israel had been out in the wilderness for 40 years. They were tired, they were weary, and they wondered where God was. But then it came time for them to go to the promised land. And so he gathered the leaders together in Joshua 1:9, and he said, I hereby command you, be strong and courageous. Don't be frightened. Don't be dismayed. For the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. And then we find these words in Isaiah. Do you not know and have you not heard? The Lord, the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth, he will not grow tired or weary. God's understanding no one can fathom. God gives strength to the weary, increases the power of the weak. Youth will grow weary. They will grow tired. Young men, they will stumble and fall. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint. The word of God that I hope becomes true for you. The family is going to share some of their stories about Carol's life. And Cameron's going to come first as a granddaughter and share with us. And then Hunter, and then Paul, and then Wayne. So come on up here. You want to walk up and be with her? Just stand right there with her. Take your mask off. Take your mask off. I'll stand.
Well, my grandma was the most kind-hearted woman I knew. She would do anything for family. I can't. I'm going to cry.
It's okay if you cry. Yeah.
She taught me life lessons to take with me and carry. Just like she always said, I can't.
Yeah, you're doing good. You're fine. You're okay. It's okay. Go ahead. People want to hear your story.
I can't.
That's
doesn't matter if you cry. Everybody else will cry. It's okay. I'm absolutely positive. Go ahead, come on.
Just like she always said, love is not saying it, it's showing it. I had a lot of favorite moments with Grandma. Every day she would pick me up or take me anywhere. We always went to go get food or ice cream. She would say, go get me a chocolate and make sure it's a small one for a small milkshake. And I always went up and got her a large. And she would just laugh and say, you're not right, but she would drink it in 2 seconds. I'm nervous. But back to our secret food runs. We would get the food and I would say, do you want to see if everyone at home wants anything? And Grandma would say, no, I'm not bringing anything back to them. It's a secret. We're a partner in crime right now. After I would finish eating, she would take me to the public trash can and make me throw away the so-called evidence. She was left-handed just like me, and when I showed her my grades, she goes, I told you left-handed people are smarter. She told me I got my blue eyes from her, even though hers was green. At night, we would sing our song together, even though I'm leaving by Luke Combs. She would hold my hand while doing so. When I was younger, we would do the same thing, but she would sing, You Are My Sunshine. When Granddad came out Target with me, and a lady said, hey, and smiled at him, and he goes, old lady hitting on me. I told Grandma what happened, and she goes, I can assure you nobody would hit on him. We have a lot of our secret trips, but sometimes we would just park by the bridge of like Stafford, by the Rappahannock River, and just watch the river, or park downtown and car watch and people watch. After I had a bad day or was sad or stressing about anything, I would go straight to her and she would just hold me. When Hunter would walk me and Cole over at night from Cassie's house, we ran straight to Grandma to hug her and tell her about our day. There is so much more stuff that she would say and do, but you would just have to know her. She had an impact to so many people by just talking to them over the phone. She was so special and has a beautiful, pure soul. There are so many more happy and funny memories that I would love to share, but that would be a mile long. But here's a poem that I instantly wanted to share about my grandma. For all the times you gently picked me up when I fell down, For all the times you tied my shoes and tucked me into bed or needed something but put me first instead. For everything we shared, the dreams, the laughter, and the tears, I love you with a special love. Thank you, Grandma.
My grandmother taught me many lessons, and of which sometimes I listened, sometimes I didn't. But some of my favorite times are the memories I had when I was younger with her. I remember the time when she was telling me that all mothers had eyes in the back of their heads. I didn't believe her. So I climbed behind her seat while she was dispatching. I took her glasses off, and I started feeling behind her head looking for eyes. She kept on, and she said, there's eyes back there, you just don't see them. But it just, small memories like that, being around her every day, everything meshes together and how much you love that person. Another memory is Virginia Beach. We went to Virginia Beach, my mother and I, and my grandma. And I remember it was around Christmas time. She drove me through the lights several times. My mom had already had enough. But my grandma persisted, as she always does. She didn't listen. She continued to drive me through them. She took me to the beach. I didn't understand. The water was cold. I still tried to touch the water, and I heard her screaming at me. But I remember, lastly, at the beach, I said I wanted ice cream or something. So my grandmother, being my grandmother, she doesn't order just the ice cream. She had them bring the whole ice cream cart. And I mean the whole ice cream cart. It looked like Kevin McAllister. And I'll never forget getting Breyer's ice cream, and every single time I see it, I see her. Just the black pepper on the ice cream. And then when I got older, high school, and I was getting ready to go to college, she knew I had decided on Virginia Wesleyan. I was at Virginia Beach, and she started with, are you sure you want to go there? You really sure? And she'd give me that look, and everyone knows that mischievous look she'd give. And she started giving me that look, and I said, she's going to work her way back to make sure I get here at the University of Mary Washington. So, my first week there, she continued calling, hey, Hunter, where you at? I miss you. Oh, and on. And then finally one day she said, where you at? Grandma, I'm at Virginia Wesleyan. I'm at Virginia Beach. Why are you there? Why aren't you with us? So, I made the best decision of my life to come back to the University of Mary Washington. Because we had so many things that she did against my mother's wishes. I'd ask for Chick-fil-A. I'd call my mom. You have a meal plan. Don't call me. We're paying for it. What does my grandma do? I call her. Hey, Grandma, can you get me some Chick-fil-A? Oh, yeah. I'll get you Chick-fil-A. So I found out she would come outside, and my mom would say, Mom, where are you going? Nowhere. I got to run errands. Mom, where are you going? Cassie, don't worry about it. So she'd come and deliver Chick-fil-A to me. And it was just a fun experience. I remember every single time, that mischievous look, that smile ear to ear. One time, though, at college, right after they let out, right after Christmas, or right before Christmas break, we decided to go to our favorite restaurant called Randolph's on the River. But the problem was, we forgot the name, and we didn't know where it was at. So my grandmother and I are driving around Dahlgren, King George, Port Royal. It didn't matter. I'm calling Richard, Gloria. Hey, what's the name of the seafood place? Oh, it's Wilkerson's. Huh? That's not it. My grandma, are you sure it's not that? No, it's not that. It's the one with the right where the river is, where the bridge is. Okay. So 2 hours in, we're still driving. We eventually veer off course. I see the University of Mary Washington Dahlgren campus. I said, oh, I've never been there. I want to go there. We pull in. Come to find out, I'm not supposed to be there. It's some form of confidential. You can't be there. You have to have a key card and everything. I'm walking up. The security looks at me, and they're giving me a look, and I went, oh, crap. I turned right around, went to my grandma. She's in the car smiling. What's going on? Drive. Drive. We never did go to Randolph's. We never ate either. We went to antique shops. We went everywhere. Oh, we don't need to go to an antique store. Well, I want to buy something for my parents for Christmas. We don't need to go there. Go in. Okay, buy whatever you want. It's just the way she was. But I want to leave you with this. It's one of my fondest memories, and she wasn't there. It's what she did. It's just like Cameron said. It's how you show love. Right after I won the national championship for BMX, we went to Disney. We have a towing conference that we go to every year, and I got to go to Disney World, so I was happy. And came into the hotel room one day. It was already the first day we were there. We got settled in. She was smart. She knew what she was doing. She wanted to make sure that we were comfortable, wouldn't expect anything. She has Mickey Mouse decorate the whole entire room. There's a welcome banner, to Hunter from Mickey Mouse, congratulations on your national championship, an embroidered blanket. Just love. It's what she exhibited and showed to everyone. Everyone that's in here knows that. And she had a cake. She had everything planned out, methodical. And I think of that memory now, because even though she's not here, those lessons that I did and did not listen to, those gifts, the small things, they live on, and we see her every day. She might not be physically here, but she is here. She's in our hearts. And that's the beautiful thing about that, is that lesson right there was a lesson I never knew was there. So my mother has a poem that she wrote that she wanted to say, but I'm going to say for her. I miss you every day. Heaven's too far away, but I will see you again someday. Till I see you again, this is not where it ends. I will carry you with me till I see you again. It's funny, this morning, I don't know if you all know, we had a tractor-trailer accident we responded to. My grandfather, he was distraught. We were all distraught. It was a very rough morning. But it was almost a blessing in a way. We all came together as a family as a very tough time. We did everything right. And it's funny, on the ride, my grandfather, he didn't know the Bible verse per se, and I think he thought of it in a different way than what it was intended. But blessing be with the one who reigns on, which is in reference to Jesus. But if you look around today, it's raining. I think we all know how blessed we were to have my grandmother in our lives, and how much of a blessing she was to everyone, and how much of a blessing she was from God. I think we all know how impactful she was. So, thank you all for being here, and she loved you all.
Mine won't be so elegant as theirs were, I can tell you that now. So I did things a little differently when Pastor Hahn and I talked with the family, and Wayne, who is, like Carol's other son. I decided that I was going to write mine like we write for a magazine or something like that. And I did it that way simply because I didn't want people to think it was just personal impressions or personal experiences for me. But I think they'll transgress over to everybody if you just hear them through. So, and then in typical Paul fashion, where Wayne can tell you that's what I do, I emailed myself so I would make sure I wouldn't lose it. So I'll try and get through this. But it's going to be a little difficult. Carol Briscoe Coleman. It's difficult to talk about someone who is larger than life. We all want to say good things about those who have passed on, usually skipping over the bad times because we don't want to diminish the memory or tarnish the image. My mother-in-law, Carol, did not present any of these problems for anyone. Imagine being around someone for 35 years and never hearing them say or mumble a bad word either about someone, something, or criticize something someone had done. I want you to think about that for a minute. I was around her every day, and I never heard her say a bad word about somebody. I mean, that's just incredible if you think about that. I mean, Roy, I asked you to stay because you're so close to me. But Roy will tell you, I'll talk about somebody every 15 minutes on the phone, Dad. Carol saw things in people others would not. She wanted to make a difference, but stay in the shadows. She would often pay for other items, contribute to charities, help fundraisers, pay for people's food, or support a local business, all while remaining anonymous. She would ask to help others, not waiting for somebody to ask her. She often honored requests without even taking the time to think about the request. Sure, we can help you with that, which sometimes meant, let me get my son or son-in-law over there to help you out. She would always politely tell us to go do this or go do that, no matter how much any of us knew about the task we were really getting ready to do. Sometimes it was easy and sometimes it was a little difficult, but she was more than willing to sacrifice one of ours muscle and sweat to complete the task. Carol was an awesome teacher. She taught me so much about life. I'm sorry. She would always grab my hand, hold it as firmly as possible, and give me her wise advice. How to be a good husband to Cassie. Then when Hunter came along, how to be the best father I could. Now that we have Cam, how to treat her with respect, but also be her foundation. She always had a way of getting her point across to me with that look. And if you know her, you know exactly what I'm talking about. She educated me on most every aspect of how to properly run a business. She would have, to teach me how to learn business, she would have me review quarterly reports for the business. To some, this might have been easy, but for me it wasn't, because I had no business background. To this day, Carol believes her system taught me off of all those quarterly reports. The real secret, I would call Wendy our accountant, and she would explain the breakdown. She would explain the breakdown. Carol thought I was a natural. I would come back a couple days later, and she was like, boy, you're really getting this. And it was really, it was really difficult to never tell her, oh yeah, Carol, I actually got the accountant to tell me how to do that. The real part, she was teaching me how to control cost, know your expenditures, how to use your history to plan for your future, which is what she was doing with us, teaching us our future. She taught me more than she will ever know about compassion, intuition, humanity, and faith. But her driving instructions were always a plus. Gloria, where are you at? Carol had a way of riding in the passenger seat and telling you how to drive. Turn here, stop here, speed up, slow down, and then that finger. Move around. Didn't matter what you did because it ultimately never mattered anyway. If you moved over, traffic would slow down. If you went to stop, people would beep the horn on you. So it never really mattered, but she thought she was educating on you how to drive, no matter how old you were. Someone once asked me how on earth I have worked for Carrie and Carol for 30 plus years in a family business. My answer is fairly simple: family. They believe in the mantra, family first. The love that Carrie and Carol have for each other resonates over to Cassie and I, which someday will transfer to Hunter and then Cameron. Because we are such a close family, it makes it easier to work together. Carol always wanted me to explore life, search out reasons to help others, give to those in need, look for ways to make myself better. She would have small comments when I was learning how to run a business, like, treat others the way you want to be treated. Don't speak it, live it. Never take advantage of anyone. And the one I live by, your word is your word, good, bad, or indifferent. If you commit, then you finish what you started. Even if you lose money, you lose time, or it costs you more sweat. I can go on and on about Carol and the way that she treated her family. The closeness of our family is truly remarkable, right down to the dinner together every day. She wanted each of us as close as possible, always. She would make road trips with each of us. These road trips were code for, let's go get something to eat and not tell anyone. She never pushed too hard, but always seemed to get her way through her kindness. If she was looking for a special gift, she would always find it. Random acts of kindness defined her. Greeting people with her was always a treat. She would greet them with a hearty handshake, and then look at me, introduce me, to which I would just stare while the person stuck their hand out. Most of you know that I'm a germ freak, so I don't like to touch others. Nope, Carol thrived making them stick their hand out, so I would have to do it and touch their hand. Then she would say the exact same thing every time. Oh, go on, it won't hurt you. Now I'm much older, and I just stare at people, and they get the hint. Carol will be missed by many in the community outside of our family and company. She made such an impression on everyone that knew her, and they will always remember some interaction with her, business, personal, and in some cases, other people's business. She often viewed towing as a business, not a lifestyle. And as a leader, she would assist any other business that sought her advice. She had a way of being the one you remembered when you met 20 people in a room. You remembered her name, not just because she was known, but because the first impression you got from her was a warm, open welcome. Carol will forever be a part of me. Weird how you hear stories of others hating their in-laws. Mine was one of the best guardian angels on earth. She's been called home to heaven to spend time with Carrie. Someday we will all be together again, and until that time, we have a lot of work to do to make sure she does not lose faith in us to continue her philanthropy, giving, and her compassion. The best mom, grandmother, and guardian I've had the pleasure to know. There's more, but you guys get the hint of what I was trying to convey. Sorry, I wrote that a different way, but I wanted people to hear it in a way that they would understand it. Most of you who are close to her understand exactly what I was trying to convey. But the one thing that I do want to say that is from the heart is Carol made a difference in everyone's life. No matter how deep she touched you or how little she touched you, you remembered who she was, and you remember that she was willing to do whatever she could to help you. And I think that's the lasting impression that Carol will always leave. And Pastor Hahn and I, we've been together a long, long time. And it's the first time when he found out that I've ever heard him say, "I'm sad today." Thank you.
When the family asked me to deliver a eulogy for Carol, I had to pause and think about it. Not at all because I didn't want to do it. I was honored even to be asked, and I certainly wanted to help. I just wasn't sure how I was going to be able to provide a synopsis of her life with a quality that she deserved. Not to mention, Carol was like a second mother to me, and I wasn't sure I'd be able to make it through to clearly deliver the information. I'm still not sure about that part. Carol's story begins in the 1940s. Things were quite different then for a variety of reasons, but Carol was certainly destined to blaze her own trail from the very beginning. 76 years ago, it was the start of the baby boomer generation. Another notable event with that particular year, 1946, bikinis went on sale for the first time in Paris. This was the year they created the organization called Mensa. Mensa is the largest and oldest high IQ society in the world. It's an organization for people who score in the 98th percentile. I don't believe Carol ever made it to Paris to buy herself a bikini, but she certainly was in the 98th percentile of human beings. There are plenty of new things and firsts happening in 1946, but the most important event of the year occurred on December 12th. That's the day Carol Dean Briscoe entered this world. Carol wasn't alone that day. Her twin sister Gloria was right there with her, followed about a year later by her other sister Bonnie. When I spoke with them, they talked about being a bunch of country girls growing up on a farm, running through the fields, and getting into trouble. Carol embraced her role as an instigator, and there were plenty of shenanigans to be had on that Spotsylvania County farm. Carol graduated from Spotsylvania High School, where she was a majorette and a star athlete. She was the only girl on the boys' soccer team. She quickly caught the eye of a young man one day as she was flinging newspapers from the back of the 61 Ford station wagon on Lafayette Boulevard. This is the same teenager, a boy they called Cookie, with whom Carol admitted having her first kiss sitting under an oak tree outside the school. Cookie, or as some know him today, Bunk, would soon become her husband, and Carol and Carrie were married for 58 years. Graduating from high school in the 60s wasn't anything unique, but remember, Carol was a trailblazer, not just a teenager. She made waves throughout the county school system when she returned to school her senior year as a married woman. It wasn't unusual to get married, but one thing that did not happen was the wife returning to finish high school. The school tried to kick her out and wouldn't let her into class. But after some guidance from Carol's father during a conversation with the principal, it was agreed that she would be able to finish the final few classes needed to graduate. She did graduate, but the compromise was she had to find her new place in line for graduation, and she moved from the B's to the C's, and all was good. Carol continued to be a groundbreaker female in the 60s and 70s. She's told me stories of the looks of the double takes that customers gave her when she pulled up in the tow truck to help them. After all, nobody expected a female to be coming to their rescue, much less someone like Carol. What was it that Carrie told me? Oh, she was hot. Not that I would doubt anything that Bunk said, but she did win Miss Spotsylvania in 1964, so there's corroboration. Carol never shied away from something that was difficult. She was a very hard worker. She did many different things along the way. She worked at Officer Candidate School in Quantico. She owned and operated a supermarket, and she took over the family towing service with her husband in the 70s. She was the vice president of Coleman Motor Company. If you spent any amount of time with Carol, you knew that she was more than willing to tell you a story. I've certainly heard a few in the 30-plus years that I've known her, and there's too many to tell here, and probably some that would get me in trouble in this venue. I spent the last few days listening to Carol's friends and family tell me their favorite stories of Carol. Though the topics may vary, the theme remains constant, and here are some of the highlights. Carol never found it difficult to tell you what she thought, whether it was her support for the Dallas Cowboys, her predictions about the damn Russians and Chinese invading, or her opinion about the traffic adjustments that were made when the Pope came to visit. You certainly knew where you stood with her. One thing you may not have known is the extent to which those random acts of kindness that you've heard about today also defined her. She truly was a guardian angel to so many people that never even knew it. She was always willing to offer a hug and a kiss on the head to help with any problem or ailment, and if that didn't work, you just put the green stuff on it. That works. There are a lot of stories which include Carolisms, things like live it, don't say it. Your word is your word. Think it, don't speak it. And if you commit, then you finish. Carol certainly was not one to shy away from providing some advice, but she was special in the way that she practiced what she preached. So many people don't walk the talk, but Carol did. As one person said, it was the random acts of kindness that defined her entire life. Carol contacted people that she read about in the newspaper. She made anonymous donations to the vet clinics to help animals whose owners were unable. She helped countless people in the community who never even knew the source of the kindness. Carol didn't just give the advice, she followed it too. Richard came up to me today, was relaying a story when they were out on one of their rides, and she made him turn around and go back to the lady that was pushing the cart up the hill so she could have a conversation and help her out. Many other life lessons provided by Carol were given during one of those favorite pastimes, taking a car ride. Whether it was headed to Randolph's on the river, just driving around Fredericksburg, probably going to end up at Carl's, going to the mountains, or going to check on a tenant. Carolisms and Carol's life lessons were given on the road or on the spot, whenever and wherever they were needed. Having such a lengthy resume as Carol did means that she had several secrets. There are still some unanswered questions, like how did Bunk's underwear end up with Roberto? Exactly how many trips were there to Chick-fil-A sneaking food into college dorms for Hunter? How many clandestine trips were there to Carl's, and where did she hide the evidence? How many Gulrick hot dogs did Carol and Cameron have for breakfast? And I want to know, what is the final crazy count after all these years? One thing that was not a secret, however, was Carol's drive to take care of you. She had a special skill that she honed over many, many years to know exactly how to make things better when something was wrong. We could all use a little bit of that right now, Carol. Carol's special skills were also practiced on her two children. Little Carrie and Cassie had a front row seat and got to experience these special powers day in and day out. Cassie told me that her mother is caring, amazing, respected, optimistic, and loving. And just in case you were wondering if there's any space between the apple and the tree, those spell Carol. Cassie described her mother as the best mother in the world and had many, many examples where Carol lived up to that reputation. As you can imagine, as a child, Cassie wasn't real fond of leaving her parents to go off to school. This wasn't an average run-of-the-mill separation anxiety. This was Coleman-level separation anxiety. So when Cassie finally came home with a note from the teacher describing her significant improvement, it was time for celebration, off to Carl's. There were many examples of Carol's love that she showered on everyone around her, whether it was finding a driver's location as they waited for the next call, taking them to Carl's, there is a theme. Or if you were scheduled to have some days off, you had to come inside to leave your tickets, not to put them in the truck. She wanted to give you a hug, tell you to be safe, be careful, and to behave. She truly cared about her employees, and they felt it. She also did countless things to help the animals, and dogs and cats have always been around her the entire time I've known her. Carol was also happy to feed you, even if you weren't hungry. You stood around long enough, you were going to end up with something in your hand. If you were at the house in the evening, there was plenty of conversation about pots and pans, a brief and concise decision on what was going to be for dinner, and Carol had several go-tos for her food choices. There's the late-night chicken salad sandwich, there's Captain D's, eclairs from Paul's, but the top of the list had to be double cheeseburger from McDonald's with a giant glass of milk. I can't tell you how many times I heard her say, "You ain't got to remind me to eat." Again, if you knew Carol, you knew she was a very proper and straight-laced person. She would never utter a cuss word. She was very reserved. Well, maybe that's not the best description of Carol, but when I talked to her employees, her friends, and her family, and asked them to describe her in a single word, this is what I got. Motherly. Inspiring. Independent. Matriarch. Watchdog. Determined. Loving. Leader. Troublemaker. Awesome. Caring. Brave. Tough. Strong. Patient. Protective. One of a kind. And sincere. All very good and accurate descriptions. For me, the single word that describes Carol Coleman is fierce. The way she protected those close to her was fierce. The way she attacked a problem was fierce. She could be a fierce adversary or a fierce ally. The way she drove was fierce. The way she lived her entire life, fierce. And the way she loved was fierce. I could go on, but I need to wrap things up. I can hear Carol now. Hurry the hell up, Wayne. Anyway, now you can see why I was so apprehensive about being able to summarize Carol and explain how she reverberated through the world around her. Her ability to teach others compassion, intuition, humanity, and faith is truly remarkable. She was larger than life, and that's something that I've heard repeatedly in the last week, and something that I experienced personally. Carol was able to impact so many lives and make such a difference. Just look at the outpouring of support for her today. She was so many things to so many people during her life. She was Carrie's wife. She was Cassie and little Carrie's mother. She was a grandmother to Hunter and to Cameron, and a sister to Bobby, Bonnie, and Gloria. She was an employer, a friend, a confidant, and a business partner to so many people, locally and across the country. She was a second mother to dozens of us who she took care of, supported, and helped us to hone our life skills. Some who recognized it and appreciated it, and many more who have not yet understood how much Carol has impacted their life. I certainly am a better person for just having known Carol. As one person told me, she was my mother, my big sister, and my best friend all wrapped into one. I don't believe that Carol had any regrets. She certainly didn't hold back on living her life nor sharing her love. My only regret is that I won't be there to hear what she has to say to Frank Sinatra. And can you imagine the reunion with little Carrie? There is certainly a lot to catch up on. In closing, I'd like to share her love of country music by playing a song that could easily have been written by her. Unfortunately, we are not able to broadcast a song, so those online, you're going to hear some silence. And then one final question. Are you going to ride or are you going to follow?
These words they've shared. We began with Cameron sharing her story, and it's my understanding that your grandma used to sing to you, and she would hold you, and so we're going to I want you to imagine Grandma holding Cameron and singing this song.
I'm afraid. Won't you stay a little while? Keep me safe, 'cause 'cause there's monsters right outside. Daddy, please don't go. I don't wanna be alone, 'cause the second that you're gone, they're gonna know. Before he went to bed, he grabbed my hand and said, just 'cause I'm leaving, it don't mean that I won't be right by your side. When you need me, you can't see me in the middle of the night. Just close your eyes and say a prayer. It's okay, I know you're scared when I'm not here, but I'll always be right there. Even though I'm leaving, I ain't going nowhere. Dad will be late, and Uncle Sam don't like to wait. He's got a big old plane that's gonna take me far away. I know I act tough, but there's a churning in my gut, 'cause I just can't call you up when things get rough. Before I left, he hugged my neck and said, just 'cause you're leaving, it don't mean that I won't be right by your side. When you need me and you can't see me in the middle of the night, just close your eyes and say a prayer. It's okay, I know you're scared. I might be here, but I'll always be right there. Even though you're leaving, I ain't going nowhere. Daddy, I'm afraid. Won't you stay a little while? I never thought I'd see the day I'd have to say goodbye. Daddy, please don't go. I can't do this on my own. There's no way that I can walk this road alone. Daddy grabbed my hand and said, just 'cause I'm leaving, it don't mean that I won't be right by your side. When you need me and you can't see me in the middle of the night, just close your eyes and say a prayer. It's okay, boy, I ain't scared. I won't be there, but I'll always be right there. Even though I'm leaving, I ain't going nowhere. Even though I'm leaving, I ain't going nowhere.
That's a beautiful picture. The New Testament says to us, as Jesus prepared his disciples for his departure, let not your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. For in my Father's house there are many mansions. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, so that where I am, you may be also. And Thomas said, Lord, we don't know where you're going. How will we know the way? And Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father except through me. Paul later said to those in the book of Hebrews, something that I think is another beautiful picture I want to call up in your mind before I share my remarks. It says, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, it's like they're up there in the stands, the grandstands, watching us live our lives. Surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and every sin that clings so closely, and let us run with perseverance the race set before each of us. Carol's in the stands cheering us on. And then in Timothy he says, for this reason I remind you, fan into flame the gift of God, which is in you, through the laying on of my hands. For God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-control. He went on to say, at the end of his life, I'm ready. The time of my departure is at hand. I fought a good fight. I finished the race. I kept the faith. And there's laid up for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will give to me on that day. But not just to me, but to every one of you who will watch for his appearing. Cameron, I know Carol sang that song and hugged you and cried with you sometimes. Just 'cause I'm leaving don't mean I won't be right by your side. I think all of us need to hear that today. I don't know about you, but in my family, we have secret sayings that only the family knows, like many of you. When the day is gloomy and our energy has ebbed, my wife and I often look at one another and say, I got the I don't want tos. It reminds me that in life, the question before us is whether to act or to quit. The question is whether to re-sign life's commitments or to resign from life's challenges. I want to frame your memory of Carol's life around the Gospel of Matthew chapter 25, where it talks about a story of somebody that had the I don't want tos. In the story, it tells about a man who's going to leave and go on a journey. And before he goes on the journey, he calls together his servants. And to one, he gives 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1. And when he comes back, he comes to the man with the 5 talents and asks for it, and he tells him he had doubled what he had given him, as had the one with the 2 had doubled his. But in the story, the center stage is given to the guy who was given the 1 talent. The master stands before this servant who has the I don't want tos, and he asks him about the talent, and the man says, Master, I know you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, gathering where you did not winnow, and so I was afraid. And I went and hid my talent in the ground. I dug a hole and buried it in the ground. Here, have what is yours. Well, the 5 and 2 talent folk received a commendation. Well done, good and faithful servants. But the man who drew the little hand, well, he dressed him down. You wicked and lazy servant. Take what is his and give it to the one who has the 10. And then he punished him. Now, the truth is, I don't think I've ever read that story since being a Christian that I didn't tend to sympathize with the man that drew the little hand. And as I look at him, I say to myself, what's all the stir? I mean, why is this guy being dressed down? Why is everybody so upset with him? He hadn't lost anything. He hadn't wasted anything. He hadn't become a prodigal with what God had given to him. I mean, what had he done? And of course, the answer is he had done nothing. He had taken what had been given to him, and he underlived his life. So the message in the parable is a warning to the likes of us not to underlive our lives. Today we gather here for Carol Coleman. Carol was given a gift by the Master, and she did not dig a hole in the ground and bury it. Carol took what God gave her and turned it loose for the God movement in her family. She allowed God to move in your family. You know, in a world where everything changes all the time, don't you wish sometimes that we could just keep some things? I read to you about Paul where it said, I kept the faith. Carol can say like Paul, I kept the faith with my family. I kept the faith with my friends. She fought a good fight, and you helped her finish the race. We've already heard a great deal about how she kept the faith with the family, but I wanted to kind of characterize that for you. And for those of you watching online, maybe you don't even know some of these things, and I want to explain some of them to you to show how this woman took what God gave her, did not underlive her life, but she gave it to all of us in a wonderful way. As a family, I heard you talk about the many fun times you had when you went to Great Wolf Lodge. You remember Grandma, Mom, Carol tramping around all over Great Wolf Lodge where there's water everywhere, but not like anybody else. She was wearing her New Balance shoes because I'm not going to get my feet wet in that place where everybody else is walking around barefoot. She ordered you meals. Meals you didn't even need, but meals you wanted. In fact, she made it a lifelong journey for you to sneak you away and to get you food. You've heard it said already, but I think it's important to really understand as a grandfather how beautiful it is to watch a grandmother do what she does with those grandchildren. Come with me. I need you to go somewhere. No matter what you're involved in, what you're doing, or what's being expected, come. I need you to come do something with me. And she'd get them out of what they were doing, and they would sneak off to Captain D's or to Carl's for ice cream. Don't you tell anyone. And sometimes, as you heard, her granddaughter Cameron told me that she would say, go over there and throw away the evidence. We don't want to be caught. So let's say an example of her keeping the faith with her family was being a partner in crime. But now I want to call it grandma in crime. You never forget her mischievous smile as she would say, law? I never heard of no law like that. And you always loved her back with small little examples, like when Cameron would go to Carl's and she would tell her to get 2 milkshakes and get me a small one, and she would order 2 large ones. And as she said, she'd drink it down even without a straw. Cameron said, my grandma was famous. She was famous for driving around town trying to find panhandlers. Can you imagine your granddaughter saying that about you? Most of us, if we know there's a panhandler, it hangs out a particular corner, we try to go around and miss that corner, or we try to keep our heads straight ahead as if not to see them. But Carol would drive around with her granddaughter in the car looking for panhandlers to give some money. She was even known to go to the veterinarian hospital and pay a bill for somebody who couldn't afford to pay for their care of their pet. Some of this you've heard, but Hunter said that sometimes she would hide him away at Randolph's on the river in Port Royal. She kept the faith with her family. She did not take the good gifts that God had given her and dig a hole in the ground and bury it. Carol decided not to underlive her life. She turned her life loose for the God movement in your life and in God's world. Hunter and Cameron, I hope you know how much your grandmother loved you. She would call and talk to me about it, how proud she was, and how glad she was to have you. She liked the John Deere Power Wheel. If you don't know the story, ask the family. The Gator and all the upgrades. The accidents that happened on the Gator. And Cassie, she loved you too. Cassie was a partner in crime with her. Carol would often tell her to kind of keep things away from Dad. So the story goes like this. Cassie and her brother liked to play in the green Plymouth. And they were playing with the blinker. I guess that would be this side, playing with the blinker. And I guess your brother blew the horn. Somebody blew the horn. And so Cassie snapped the blinker right off of the column of the green Plymouth. Well, what did Carol say? Well, just go get some crazy glue. We'll glue that thing back on. They looked for crazy glue everywhere they could try to find it. They got it. It didn't work. She said, put crazy glue on it, and we'll tape it back on there too. Now, Cassie told me that she put more miles on that green Plymouth playing with it in the driveway than anybody who ever drove it. So they put the crazy glue and the tape back on and put it there. And it wasn't until later that Dad went out to drive the car and broke off right in his hand. When he asked, Carol said, I don't know what happened to it. I don't know. And in fact, I don't think until they were sitting in my office Wednesday that he knew who broke it off. So truth came out. And can you imagine her sending Paul and her son out in the cornfield for a cornfield derby? She actually told them, get in the cars. They went out, where were they? Like Gators or something? And here they were, just junk cars running around. And they're riding all over the backyard. They're running through the cornfield. There were jumps. They even actually passed each other in the air. They could have hit each other, but they didn't. And they were just tearing up all the corn in the field. It was laid down on the ground, and she had told them to do it. And when Dad came home that night and saw the yard and said, what in the world has happened here? What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. And she was the one that promoted this to happen. She kept the faith with her family and kept the faith until you helped her finish the race. She did not underlive her life. She ate Breyer's ice cream with you. She bought championship cakes for Hunter, Easter cakes for Easter, and nutcrackers for Christmas. So when Carol was a young girl, how did she come to be the one that could take what God had given to her and do her very best and bless this world and bless your lives? How did that happen from a young girl? Well, we know that she was born in the old Fredericksburg Hospital, raised in Spotsylvania schools, and instead of being timid or intimidated as a teenager, she became Miss Spotsylvania in 1964. A majorette, played basketball, understood she played baseball with the guys, Park and Rec. Fortunately, Carrie, you married her in her senior year and spent 58 years together, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do us part. They said those words right there in this church building with the Reverend Howard Cates, who then, after they made those commitments to each other, said, I now pronounce you husband and wife. She went on to work at Quantico for Judge Bolton, worked in the family business. She was not distracted, though, from keeping the faith with the family. As difficult as it was to be the matriarch of a business and a home that was all mixed together, she pulled it off. She was loving to all of her family, her extended family, and would do anything for anybody and for everybody, even the Jehovah's Witness who would knock at the door, and we won't go there. You have a lot of Carolisms or momisms or grandmaisms, like love is not saying it, it's showing it. Think it, don't speak it. I got news for you. One day I'm going to honk your ass. Did I say that out loud in church? When you're 75, I hope you feel what I'm going through these days. And I'm sure there's a lot more, but you get the point. She created a culture that you all call family. She would want you to remember her as loving and kind, and she taught you how to love and how to love others. She was full of strength and willpower, scared of nothing. So what are you going to do with everything she taught you? What are you going to do with all the memories that you have? I want to remind you, Cassie, Cameron, and Hunter particularly, she's left you a big inheritance. And the inheritance she left you is like the one in the Old Testament when Elijah was getting ready to die. He called his son Elisha in and said to him, now he's a big, wealthy guy, he says, what is it that I can do for you before I die? He could have had anything. Anything. And this is what he asked of his dad. I wish I could inherit a double portion of your spirit. That's a pretty noble request of a mom, a wife, a grandmother like Carol. May you receive a double portion of her spirit, and may you be willing to take the responsibility of the gifts that God has given to each of you and bless this world in the way she did. Don't take what God has given you and dig a hole in the ground and bury it. I guess you can see how easy it would be to say that she kept the faith with her friends, how she kept the faith with everyone. She heard the words, well done, good and faithful servant. Enter into your joy. One last thing. I have to admit that I don't really know what heaven is like. None of us really know what it is, but I assume that it's everything I can imagine and more. But I think it's a place where God is perfectly present and watches over you and me. And I can imagine whenever good happens, that God looks down upon what's happening in the world and sees it, and he pulls back the curtain, and he says, "Hey, Carol, come over here. I want you to see this." And Hunter is getting married. Or Cameron is graduating or getting married. Or that first great-grandchildren's born. And she'll be there because she's with God and because God is with us. I imagine that if God is good and heaven is perfect, that anything that's good that happens, God would include me in. And then I'm reminded in the heavens that the angels sing. We've already know that she has sung a lot of songs through her life. I don't know what she might sing, but she might sing for us, "Even Though I'm Leaving," or she might sing something as lovely as "Fly Me to the Moon." Fill my heart with song and let me sing forevermore. You are all I long for, all I worship and adore. In other words, please be true. In other words, I love you. I remember the phone call not long ago when she said, "I love you. I love my family. Life is good."
Fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. In other words, hold my hand. In other words, darling, kiss me. Fill my heart with song, let me sing forevermore. You are all I long for, all I worship and adore. In other words, please be true. In other words, I love you. Fill my heart with song, let me sing forevermore. You are all I long for, all I worship and adore. In other words, please be true. In other words, I love you.
God, we thank you for giving us this time to sit away from work, away from distractions, and just lift up Carol's story. The story we know all too well. Thank you for letting us to live in this moment and know that we were loved by her. And God, we know that we are loved by you and that you have perfectly cared for her. So God, we ask that you also care for us. Strengthen us and remind us with these stories what we have learned and what we have gained, and help us to carry on those things we cherish most that we've learned from her, that we too might bless this world and bless each other and extend to this family our love and care. Holy God, we are grateful for Carol Coleman's life and for the way she lived it and for the way we experienced it. This we ask in Jesus' name. Amen. In just a moment, we're going to sing a Christmas song. If Carol got to come to church, it was because you didn't call and have her having to work. And on Christmas Eve, that would be something she would love to do, is to sing Go Tell It on the Mountain. That was just that favorite song she loved. It had a little pep to it, and she just loved to sing it. So as we go out, and as she goes out from this place one last time, I want to invite you to join in singing one of her favorites, Go Tell It on the Mountain.